very happy to be here because we're not a bunch of law enforcement agents. I was very nervous today. I was a complete wreck. Like, oh, I don't want to do this. But tonight's about families and looking at it all, you're normal people, not law enforcement with guns. Looking at me as I criticize their job. But 3 years ago, and a week and a day, my daughter, a picture of her. That was her picture. She's a normal 14-year-old girl, wasn't into boys, well, I guess that's not really normal. Wasn't into boys, wasn't into shopping, she was a bookworm. She wasn't street smart, she was book smart. And she finally found her niche in life, and that was the FFA. She wanted to raise a lamb. Her first year, she had the lamb's name picked out a year before, and she was so excited to go to high school. She was so excited to live her life. Actually threatened me that she was going to stay with me until she finished college, met a man, and then married him before she moved out. That wasn't going to happen. So I waited till the last day to give her her check for the lamb, and that morning she left, and she had a check in her pocket for $200, and she was going to move us down. Okay, she had a check in her pocket. You guys hear me okay? Yeah. She had a check in her pocket. And she was a creature of habit. She always walked the same way. I always knew which way my daughter went to school. She didn't take shortcuts. She didn't cross through the church and run across the street like I would have done. She walked on the sidewalk. She crossed the crosswalk, and she usually had her nose in a book. But that morning she was so excited she left early, and she went a block further to see if her friend was walking, and her friend wasn't walking. And she continued down the street, but there was no outage. It was fencing on both sides. There was no house or anything else. And a sex offender was driving by on Main Street and saw her, and he turned the car around and he pulled up and threatened her with her life. Get in this car, or it's going to be a lot worse. And she got in the car, and she vanished. Nobody saw her because there wasn't a way for her to get away. She couldn't run to a house. She couldn't do anything. And he was a big guy. He's 6'2" and 260 pounds. He's a big guy and evil. So we searched for her for 13 months. Searched everywhere for her, and there was nothing. After 1 year, the police came to me and they said, "Look, we're at day one. We've done over 500 interviews, and we have nothing on your daughter's case. We don't know what happened to her. She just vanished she vanished." I started, in my heart, I knew that she was taken by a sex offender. I knew that, I figured she was. I didn't know for sure, but, they were all on my radar. But in Escondido, where I live, there's 140 of them. How do you investigate 140 of them? And we did our own private investigations. We went to their house. I got in trouble for breaking into their house and among other things. But it was my baby. I wanted to find my little girl. So I searched everywhere for her. And I made a promise to God the night that she disappeared. Sorry, I'm still getting emotional. I was in the church parking lot. It's down the street from my house because we have an eyewitness that said they saw my daughter in front of the high school. So I took my dogs over, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I made a promise to God that I would do whatever it takes to tell them to the family, because I would never want a mom to be in a parking lot pouring down the rain at 2 o'clock in the morning and not know where their child was. And I'm not a religious person, and I can tell you exactly what my prayer said, because I'm like, God, I know people only come to you when they want something, and I'm no different from everybody else because I want something. I want my child to be safe. And I promise that I'll change my life, and I will help out other families. And I don't know how, maybe it'll just be me and the dog, but I don't want another family to ever go through this again. And then, of course, I backed it up, and I said, no, I take that back, God. Actually, I would like to say no matter what happens, whatever the outcome is, I'm still going to help families. So, 13 months we searched for her. And another girl went missing 30 miles away from my house. A girl by the name of Chelsea King. And she was jogging in the park, and just vanished. And we thought, well, could this be related? Well, later, the next day came out that 2 months prior to that, a girl was attacked in that same park, and they didn't let the community know that this had happened, that a girl was almost raped in the same park. They didn't have flyers, they didn't have anything, and it ended up being the same person. And we found Chelsea King 3 days later. They found her body when they were doing a search, and they arrested John Gardner, sex offender. And later he made a deal that he would show police where Amber's remains were, but they couldn't use it. They had to build their own case. Law enforcement had to build their own case. And we couldn't. Law enforcement couldn't build the case. So I was never going to have an answer. I was never going to know that John Gardner did this to my daughter until they made another deal with Chelsea's parents that said, if you take the death penalty off the table, then and he pleads out, then you can let Carrie know what happened to her daughter, and that's what the Kings did for us. So I started, let me back that up. He was allowed while he was in jail to do a 2-hour interview with media while he's sitting in jail before his sentencing. I don't know why he was allowed that, but he was. And during his interview, he said if the parents want to know what happened to their kids, I'll tell them, but I'll only tell the parents. So I made it, I wanted to know. I wanted to know what happened to my baby. So I fought and went down and asked his mother for permission to have one of her visits, and they weren't going to allow it. They weren't going to allow it. They wanted to sentence him, and then I could talk to him. Well, he already had my life. He already took my baby, so why was he getting all these rights? And I was getting ripped off of him. He's already stolen my life. So they finally allowed me to go in and meet with him 2 days before his sentencing, and he gave me the answers that I wanted. How he took her, why he took her. The fact that she was alone walking by herself on a street that there was no houses or anything. It was a perfect target. I share that story because you need to know which way your kids walk to school. And you need to know if they ever change the way they walk or where they walk. Oh, thanks. Now I'm done. Good job, Ed. You're a little late on that. But I knew Amber so well. I knew everything she did. I couldn't understand how she was taken in front of the high school with 2,000 children there. The police made a lot of mistakes in the case. They considered her a runaway. She was 13 years old. So she ran away automatically. They thought that. So they didn't collect the trash. If the child's abducted at their 7, 8, 9, they figure it's an abduction. They collect all the trash in a 5-mile radius. They didn't do this with Amber because she was a runaway because of her age. And had they collected the trash in the 5-mile radius, they would have had her die. Chelsea King would have never died because after he buried my daughter, he took her clothes and dumped them in the dumpster. He also dumped her cell phone in the dumpster, which the next day someone found it, in the dumpster, and the phone pinged. And the police thought, okay, now she's really a runaway because her cell phone pinged. They didn't think that someone dumped her cell phone. So there were a lot of mistakes. Not as many mistakes that happen in a small town like this. Well, maybe not this town because of the training they do here, but, especially in the small towns, law enforcement isn't trained correctly to handle a missing persons case. They don't know the resources that are out there. There's so many resources out there. So when a case like this happens, they don't know what to do. And a lot of these cases don't get solved. It's colleges like this and programs that help make us all aware of what's going on in our community and in our states. I mean, there's so many children missing and adults missing. One thing I always tell my friends, you have teenagers, great. Almost every cell phone plan has a child safety watch on it. I forget what they're called, but most cell phones, and Verizon and AT&T, they all have a program on there where you can GPS your child. You can have, it'll send you alerts if they leave a certain area or whatever. Yeah, your young girls out here, if you don't want it on your phone, it's really saving your life because it happens so often. You think, oh, it wouldn't happen to me. It happens in small towns, big towns, everywhere. And there's no really way to train anybody. I mean, even law enforcement says, you know, if someone abducted me or grabbed me, we're going to be in shock. Number one, we're law enforcement, how can this happen to us? But there's no way of really protecting your children if something happens to them. I mean, you can't expect an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, or a 10, you know, or even a 14-year-old to be able to fight back and not have that shock of being abducted. I told Amber twice, 2 weeks before she was taken, I said, you know, Amber, what if, you know, if there was some attempted abductions, and I talked to her about it, and I said, honey, you know, what if they said they had your little sister? And she goes, well, you know, Mom, she's kind of a brat anyway, so I'm like, okay, take that back. I said, well, what if they said they had me? Well, Mom, you kicked her butt. All right, Amber, you know what I'm talking about. She's like, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to fall for, oh, look at my puppy. An 8-year-old will fall for, look at my puppy, but a 14-year-old's not going to fall for that. But do they expect someone to drive up with a knife, a big man, and with a rage on his face and threatening their life in a place where they have nowhere to go? I wouldn't even know what to do. I mean, I don't think anyone would really know what to do. So how do you keep our babies safe? You know where they're at. If they're old enough to have a cell phone, you make sure they have a cell phone on them, and you track them. I mean, kids don't want to hear that. Don't tell your kids. And these ones back here, track them. But you know, it's $10 a month to track your child. If I had that on Amber's phone, which I wanted on her phone, because it was stolen a few months prior to her being abducted, but my mom, she was on my mom's time, whatever. It didn't happen. Had I had that on her phone, I would have been notified that she left that area right away. And I would have been calling her phone, and I would have notified the police or something, because why was she out there? And I would have known exactly where she was at. But since I didn't have that service on there, you know, she was gone. I mean, she was murdered before I even knew she was missing. Because 75% are killed within the first 3 hours. And a lot of times, 3 hours, 75% of them by stranger abduction. So it's not that I want to scare anybody or say anything, but you guys do produce a lot of the serial killers. No. But it just happens so often now. It just, I mean, in California, I know we have 300,000 runaways or missing. I mean, that's a lot of kids in 1 year. And it's just, you know, you need to keep them safe. I mean, I would do anything to get her back. Absolutely. What I can say is if you do run across someone missing, report them to the centers. You know, there's the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. Get everybody involved, put up lots of flyers. I put up over 300,000 flyers of my daughter, and the man that killed her said he was haunted by her because I had her everywhere. He moved 5 different times to get away from the flyers, and I had him in every city. On everywhere you went, I had a flyer of my daughter. And then I thought of other ideas. I did this mailer that I held up earlier, and I sent this out to 27,000 law enforcement agencies. And it's a letter from the chief of police here, and then here it has her information, and then here are business cards for the police to carry in their pocket. And I sent that out. And then I started thinking later, well, if someone has her and she's still alive, which I always thought she was alive, I never thought she was dead. I thought I'll send out another mailer, and so the next mailer was going to go to every high school in the U.S. She was in high school. And that was this mailer, and I'll share with you because Barb told me to. This was going to go out to every high school in the U.S. And it was actually written to the kids, not to anybody else. And it looks like this. And it was from Amber to the students, and it says, I'm going to probably again, thanks, Barb. My name is Carrie McGonigle. I'm a high school sophomore. Well, let me reword that. I should be a high school sophomore. This is my story. On February 13th, I was walking to school, and I was almost there when I vanished without a trace. I was so excited about this day. I had a Valentine's Day present for my friends, and I had a check for the purchase of my FFA lamp in my back pocket. I could not wait to get to school. I even sent a text to my grandma before I left. I never made it. I was last seen by 2 parents. One said I was walking briskly. By the way, I don't ever walk briskly. And the other said there was a tall male walking next to me, and he has never been identified. I was just 14 then, and police thought I was a runaway. I did not run away. They figured out I wasn't a runaway when they found my savings, my phone charger, and all my clothes in my room. I could have told them that nobody leaves home without their stuff. I have it good at home. My mom is cool and my dad is fun. They are divorced. My little sister gets into my things, but she's only 5. Wait, I missed her 6th birthday and my 15th birthday. I'm missing everything. I have 2 dogs, a cat, a bird, and a horse, and I don't know how big they are, and I miss them all too. I'm a test and up here before, and I love the house we moved in. I made new friends in 8th grade and had more friends than ever before. I couldn't wait for high school to start. Trust me, I did not run away, someone took me. Please help me. I've been gone for a year now and I want to come home. The people who have me are dangerous, so if you see me, get help because I don't want you to be hurt trying to rescue me. Remember, if you see me and ask me if I'm Amber, I'll be too afraid of being hurt some more to answer that I am. And then it had just about, her favorite foods and top ramen and all that good stuff. And at the bottom it had the police. But it takes a lot to come up with ways to get your child's face out there, or your grandchild, or anybody else. It takes, Nancy Grace always sticks on certain stories that she likes, and what other sources do you have out there? So all I can really say is, if they're little, get them into karate, get them into something that gives them some power, but not too much to where they think they're invisible to the things in the world. Like my 8-year-old babies can kick anybody's butt. And if they're older and they're old enough to have a cell phone, put it on and talk to your children. So many people don't know their children at all. They have no idea what they're doing. They let them on the internet, they let them do everything, and they have no idea what their kids are up to. They're your children. You have a right to know what if they don't like it, take it away. But I know so many kids that are on the internet and getting into trouble, and they're going to end up hurt. They're going to end up trapped or something. And it's really you don't want to be in my shoes. And I think that's about all I have to say because I made my 30 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? Oh, there's some little back on the table. I put some of Amber's memorial stickers on there. If you guys are else can have one. Yes, please.
Isn't that disgusting to do a small town?
140,000 people.
Oh, that's pretty small.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Why do you think that the communities, even in Wisconsin, I would just wonder how many people here are aware that there's a girl missing from Bonneville, and there's definitely one still missing, if not 2 from Manigo and 1 from Wausau, and they're all in the 14, 15-year-old age group. Why do you think that the newspapers in the communities don't get the pictures in the newspapers? Why do you think that is?
Because it's not the latest and newest news, and there's so many children missing. I mean, if there's only 4 in this area, is that in this area?
Well, when I'm saying you think that the Wisconsin papers get the pictures in there, period.
Yeah. I would ask them, I mean, if their parents don't push it, if their parents aren't active, I don't know are they girls?
The girls.
Yeah. And have they gone missing in the last year or so?
The Bondwell one was January 28th, and I only know about that, and that's the reason I'm here, because I saw something at Goodwill, and I did not know Sunday about the attempted abduction by Walmart in Darwood. I live in Darwood, my name's Georgie. And I was in Goodwill that day, and I saw a very large man with, I'd say, a 13, 14-year-old girl, and her arms were straight down on her sides, and she was staring straight ahead. It looked like a dad or an uncle, and it bothered me so much. I went online, and she really kind of looked like this girl from Bonneville that went missing. And so the next morning I called Goodwill, and their security looked at it, and they said they didn't feel that there was any problem.
Did you call the police?
I left that to the security because
Yeah,
I never saw her face. I never saw the
Don't leave anything to anybody else. If you think you see someone and it doesn't matter, if you're completely wrong, call 911, because you know what, then you give the police a reason to approach.
Their response was that they did review this security tape, they felt that it was someone she knew because she entered the store after them going in and before them coming out or something.
Yeah, don't ever, you know what, if you ever see anybody that you think is in trouble, call 911, let them know, because that gives them a reason to approach that person. There's a complaint out there, they can go and they can approach it, they can investigate it. They can't just, they can, but they don't usually just walk up to strangers. But if you see something that looks funny, call 911. Just call 911 and say, this doesn't look right. And wait, if you can, if you're not going to put you in danger, wait for the police to get there to make sure they investigate it. I mean, they're there to protect and serve, and they need to do their job. If you see something, call 911. Don't leave it, I call it quite regularly. I see someone that doesn't look like he fits in a neighborhood walking along the street. I'll call him. Hi, it's Carrie McGonigle. Hi. But just because especially in a small town, when someone doesn't look right, doesn't fit in, or, yeah, just call 911. I mean, I wouldn't leave it up to a security guard to say, oh, I reviewed the tape and it looks like, who's he? But I would call him whenever he sees someone that just doesn't fit in, or it's odd for a girl to be arms straight down, looking straight ahead. I'd be more concerned if there was girls that age that go missing within that year, the same age group in the same area. Then I'd be more concerned. The next gentleman will talk about the center he used to work for and how they help with trafficked. Yes, they help with trafficked children. Yeah, how they help with trafficked children, because that's the sex trade industry is huge, and that's the age group that they look for, the 12, 13. The prostitution nowadays, the average age is 12 years old. Yes?
When you first reported Amber missing, was there a waiting period?
There is no waiting period, no.
Because of you, or there was no waiting period when you reported?
There is no waiting period anywhere. Yeah, you can report anyone missing. People still think that there's a 24-hour waiting period. There is no waiting period. Yeah. What do you want, Barb? I think I'm almost past my time. I'm not going to talk as much.
You talked a little bit today at the conference about when the investigators arrived at your house to begin the investigation. Can you go into a little bit about that and how the school got involved in the community and what your role as a parent was?
The school got involved. Police arrived at my house around, it was the next day when the detectives arrived, approximately 2 o'clock. Well, they had been with the school. They had been with the superintendent looking at surveillance cameras the whole morning. The school was great. I think they were more worried that she was on campus when she was taken. I honestly feel that they were more worried about their liability, because when they hit the school, it's their responsibility. But I think they were worried about a lawsuit or something. What do you really want to talk about?
About when the investigators showed up at your house, what transpired after that in terms of, what were the first steps that they took in terms of?
Well, when the police came to my house, and since I deal with a lot of runaways right now, a lot of law enforcement agents will call and say, I want to report someone missing. Well, how long have they been missing? There's still law enforcement agencies out there that think there's a waiting period. They'll say, well, she hasn't been gone 24 hours, or she's an adult. You can't report her missing for at least 24 hours. No, you can report them missing when they're missing, when you don't know where they're at. When the officer originally arrived at my house, I came up, I was out looking for Amber, and I came up, and he's in my house laughing, and I'm like, what's so funny? Oh, yeah, I go, what do you need? I need to know what to do next. He's like, oh, I'll go put it in our judicial system, and then that's it. And I'm like, Amber Alert? No, she didn't qualify for an Amber Alert. And I'm like, well, I need to know more. What's next? And he's like, well, that's it. And I'm like, well, you're taking this way too calmly. And he goes, look, this has happened so many times. Every single day we get calls from people, parents. We go to the house, knock on the door. They usually tell us, come on in. They don't even get up to answer the door. They're drinking a beer. They don't know the last time they saw their child. They don't know what they're wearing. They think they saw them in the last 10 days or something. And then they come back, and when they are found, they never tell it to the police. And so law enforcement gets this attitude that, they're 13, 14, they ran away. Yeah. And I said, this isn't the case here. And the officer looked at me and he said, there's a 1 in a million chance that your daughter was abducted by a stranger. And I said, this is your 1 in a million chance she was abducted. I feel for law enforcement because they have to deal with this, and there is no sure way of knowing if your child is a runaway. I feel, now that I do team member rescue, I deal with runaways, and I've had parents that I swear their child has been restrained or abducted because they know their child so well. A couple weeks later, no, right away. So there is no way for law enforcement to tell, or search and rescue to tell if they're a runaway or not. But they didn't realize Amber was really missing for probably 3 weeks. They didn't set up their official search for 3 weeks after she was already gone. And by then it's really too late. To wait 3 weeks. There was a 3% chance at that time that she'd be alive. I don't want to think, oh yes?
How extensive is training for children to get away from abductors? I know there were 2 examples on the national news in the last 2 weeks. One young girl physically broke away.
Oh, at Walmart, that one?
Yeah,
that was awesome.
And then there was another young girl that a quick trip or something like that got inside and screamed and yelled and was able to get away. So
yeah, I mean, it depends on, in my opinion, it depends on how you really raise, how you raise your children, and I'm all about self-defense for little girls. Actually, there's a lady named, she has a book called Fight Like a Girl, and she does seminars, and she only does it for women and children. She'll never have a man in her class. She's about this big. She's a 6th degree black belt, and she's that way because she got the crap beat out of her for 7 years from her husband. And so she said no more. So she goes around, she teaches women and children how to protect themselves. But then after she gets done, she waits and she watches all the kids leave. And then she goes up and she actually abducts a child, randomly. She abducts a child. And the parents get pissed off, but she says that's how easily it's done. And she always gets it in the car because they just don't listen. And, it's a constant, it's not going to take one day, it's a constant thing. Kids don't realize how hard they have to bite if someone's hurting them. Give them a tangerine or an orange and have them bite into it because that's the most realistic thing to skin. So they know how hard they actually have to bite to make a difference because, they're little, they're going to just bite. They're going to get thrown off the arm or whatever. But a tangerine is the best realistic thing so they know and make them puncture it. And it's pretty hard to bite. Bite an orange, I think it is not tangerine.
But is the training, is it becoming more extensive?
I don't think so. I'm all about self-defense, going in karate, but start them out young, have them stay in it. It can't hurt them to build self-confidence, it builds, character, and in the long run, it's going to give them the power to hopefully take care of themselves, especially in our society.
Didn't Get Smart start something to teach children in schools? How to be...
Brad?
Huh?
Brad?
Yeah, I thought
Did
he started something to teach.
Yeah.
I don't think they do it around here, I'm sure. I think it's a remarkable idea.
Yeah, it is. I'm in California, I haven't heard of it. So.
I do know that in high school, every female that's in their health class will have a special training program for a full session of how to defend yourself physically with police officers for the community that need that. And it's a required course, so all of the girls in the high school will have to do that.
Okay, well, I'm going to announce the next gentleman. He is just a go-getter. Pete Bates, former director of Training and Outreach, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. He's been in charge of their training. He's full of information and way better at public speaking than I am.
Full of information, that's not what you said.
Yeah, that's not usually what I say about him.
Carrie, thank you so much.